So, for whatever reason, on my recommended video feed here on YouTube, I'm constantly getting recommendations to watch videos that revolve around Black Lives Matter. And I personally don't have any desire to be a part of Black Lives Matter. I don't agree with their core values and so forth. And for whatever reason, I'm getting all of these recommendations. Now, after this has been going on for a few days, I'm wondering, like, why am I getting all this? This is ridiculous. It's almost like it's just pushed in my face. And so I watched a few of them just to see different people's viewpoints because it's been recommended so much. And so I watched them. And of course, I think that they're just ridiculous videos. But you know what? They have a right to speak and so forth and share ideas. So be it. But I go in the comment section and I write a comment or two. And guess what? All of them have been blocked. All of them have been censored. None of them have been made public. So it's like, okay, the person can talk all he wants. And in all these different videos, there's different channels that I went to. And in all cases, my comments were never made public. And so I'm like, okay, I guess if that's how they want to play it, then I'll just go to my own channel and make a response, just a general response. I'm not going to specifically, highlight any channels. I don't even want to give anybody more attention that they already have, especially in the Black Lives Movement. I think it's just ridiculous. But so I have my own channel, obviously. So I'm like, I'm just going to make a generic type of overview comment, like a master comment toward Black Lives Matter, just because I'm being blocked at every comment on every video. So yeah, let's do that. So let me go ahead and go to my notes on my phone here. And I'm going to kind of read off a little bit at a time. I might have a few extra words to say about certain things on my list here, but I kind of just made a master comment. And before anyone says, oh, you shouldn't use the word master, like master bedroom, master, whatever, there's a lot of words that, master is involved. There's parts of vehicles, I believe, that have like the word master in it. It has nothing to do with slavery. So let's just stop being so hyper sensitive toward everything. Just like the word black, just because I like black pepper or black coffee or whatever, that doesn't mean I'm a racist. That just means that that's a color or a lack thereof, if you will, however you want to look at it. And that some things are labeled like that. That's how we talk, It's unbelievable, But some people think we should just get rid of anything that has anything that could ever be used in terminology back in the day of slavery or just anything. And I'm not for slavery at all. But just because the word master was used in some context in the past doesn't mean that it's used in the same way now. So there's a lot of ignorance going on. And it's just ridiculous. And that's what I have to say about that. But let's go ahead into my statement here about Black Lives Matter. And I might take it a little bit slow because it's a little hard to read this small screen and all this. But let me just try to get into it. And then after this, I may say a few words and then I'm just going to end the video. I don't want this to be too long. I don't really want to, once again, even give Black Lives Matter almost any attention. But I just want to say a few words about it. So if Black Lives Matter, then white lives matter too, or at least shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be like common sense? Like it shouldn't be controversial, at least, to say that at least all lives matter, but it is controversial. The movement Black Lives Matter is controversial, at least to me, because it's a communist movement. It's a literal communist movement. And they don't even hide that fact. The people that helped to bring about this whole movement, the so-called founders, I guess you could say it that way. The founders of Black Lives Movement are on tape. They're on interviews saying that they are communist. And they're a type of trained Marxist communist. You can't even make this stuff up. Okay? And the movement Black Lives Matter is controversial not only because it's a communist movement but they're set on destroying and dividing the free countries of the world, in particular the Republic of the U.S. They don't like our values. They hate our freedoms. That's a fact. Black Lives Matter doesn't respect the rule of law and personal freedoms. If Black Lives Matter actually cared about black people, they wouldn't promote Marxist communist ideology. But instead, they would promote changing the black culture to have stronger family values, in particular to promote two-parent families. And they would also promote respect of life. Respect of life. That's a big one for the black community, apparently. The number of black babies killed every year through abortion is outrageous, just as black on black killings in cities like Chicago. I mean, it's like almost every night, multiple people are killed in gang thug activity. And it's just all so outrageous. No real change will occur with leftist communist ignorance. Don't forget that black people weren't the only people enslaved. White people were on those slave boats coming from Africa too. Do your research in history. Don't just take my word for it. You'll see that there's a lot of history just not popular. Not a lot of popular history containing this information. It's just not the thing that people talk about, but it doesn't mean it's not real. White people were on those slave boats from Africa too. Millions of white Europeans were captured, in most cases kidnapped from and by African slave traders. So let me just say that one more time. Millions of white Europeans were kidnapped by African slave traders, and many were sold and transported to early America. The white slaves worked side by side with black slaves for hundreds of years. This is like part of the history that they don't really talk about in history class. And it's because most of the history books are written by leftist historians. Unbelievable. The white slaves worked side by side with black slaves for hundreds of years. And this is real history, people. There's court documents, diaries, books, and historians of all different types. Just go and look at the European historians. I mean, it's very common knowledge that the African slave traders came up, especially on the coastlines of Europe. And they would just raid, sometimes take the entire city and put them into slavery. Just steal the whole area. They just take people, kidnap them. Unbelievable. The African slave traders sold their own people into slavery. Most Africans that came from Africa to America, they were actually enslaved by their own people. I mean, do you really think that the Europeans gathered up approximately 30 million people in Africa? I mean, that's just so ridiculous. No, they didn't do that. I mean, it's common knowledge and it's just mainstream history, even in Africa, Northern Africa, that they themselves enslaved their own people, sold their own people to Europeans. And they also sold enslaved white Europeans into slavery to America. Unbelievable. So we have more in common than what the mainstream media and the popular U.S. history has told us. We have a lot in common. White people are not all slave drivers, and black people are not all slave drivers, even though we have a history on both sides. But here in America, white people and black people have both been slaves. And I just have just a little bit of advice, with all due respect. Instead of African American, how about saying that you're just American, just like white people or Mexican people? People, they don't sit around and say, yeah, I'm European American or I'm Mexican American. Typically, it's usually I'm an American. And what you see with black folks, typically speaking, at least the ones that I've been around, when they're trying to be real formal about things, they say African American. But Africa is not a race. That's a continent. It's not even a country. It's a continent. Why are you bringing that up? If you were not even born there, if you don't even know anyone there, if you've never even been there, it doesn't, you don't have to say it. You don't have to bring this stuff up. It doesn't help anything. It just causes more division. If you're just trying to make yourself that much more different than someone else, then you're going to be treated differently. And so the more you segregate yourself, the harder it is to not see yourself as a victim. And I just wish that people could actually really take that to heart. And that goes for anyone with any problem they have, If you feel like you're, poor me, and you have all this self-pity, and you know who's causing that, right? You're causing that. So stop being a victim. Stop being a victim. So that's about all that I really want to say concerning all this. I just feel like that, those people who want to burn down cities and tear down monuments and try to rewrite history, that's just like gang mentality. That's just like mob mentality. Those are un-American people. Those are actually the enemy of the state. I would say that those are domestic terrorists. And I mean, I can't see any other proposition than that, right? How else can you see it? So learn your history and understand that slavery has happened to everyone at some point. And it just happens, though, that white people from Europe were enslaved at the same time as black people when they were coming over in early America. And they worked side by side for hundreds of years. And it's just something that's not been talked about very much at all. It's quite amazing. And of course, I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about like white indentured servants. I'm talking about people that were taken against their will by African slave traders. And they were put in full bondage for the rest of their life. They were never able to go home. They died in bondage. And so if you think that just blacks only suffered that, then you need to go back in history and say that with both races, many races, and Native Americans suffered this. Everybody has suffered cruel and unjust, inhumane types of horrible things against them. And so this is part of the human condition. It's not right. It's not good. But this is stuff. This stuff happens in history from time to time. And so at the moment, though, we're all free. I mean, can we not just see that? We should be so happy and we should celebrate this. But instead, we have the leftist people, the Marxist communists that want to make up a bunch of crap about institutionalized racism and unconscious bias and things that you can never prove in a court of law, things that don't hold water when you actually examine them. All kinds of things like white privilege and all this shit that doesn't even exist. All kinds of things are made up. And if you continue to make things up like that are just complete lies, then we're just going to be stuck in the past. And it's really sad to see so many people just stuck in the past, even though they're free. They can do almost an unlimited things, but they choose not to do almost anything. So you have to get out of that enslaved mindset. You have to free yourself, right? You have to move on. You have to do something. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen for yourself. Nothing is going to happen. You're just going to be stuck in the mud. And you're just going to say, poor me, I'm a victim. I'm a victim of the system. When in reality, you're just a victim of your own thinking.